Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.
Hello everyone and welcome along to the RTÉ GAA Podcast, looking back on league finals weekend with Dessie Dolan joining myself and Rory. How are you keeping, Dessie?
Great, yeah. Just it's different going to matches now. It's nice to enjoy them with no pressure. That's the thing.
I was going to say, how much pressure is released when you can actually just sit there and go, nothing to do with me, folks?
The only way to describe it is every part of your life is consumed by football. And if, let's say, if the kids wake up in the middle of the night, you start thinking of the corner forward missing a shot. Like, it's hard to get back to sleep. So, like, your life is fully consumed by it. It's an amazing opportunity. I suppose that's the other side of it. The good side is that you're managing your county, which is a massive honour. But certainly in terms of being an inter-county manager now, it definitely is a full-time job. I can confirm that. So like you can see the pressure and strains, and then like winning and losing brings so much, like you're really on a high one week, and then the next game is coming around the corner so quick. And the season is really short for inter-county now. I know it works well because like you have 97% of the games are club games. That's great. But the 3% of games that you're an inter-county manager are really important. And when you're not getting an opportunity and the example I give you, Senan Baker's a Westmeath lad, Ollie Baker's son, he hurt his hamstring the week before the National League for Westmeath, and he didn't feature in one game in the National League. It gives you an idea how condensed it actually is in terms of and that's the thing, I feel a little bit sorry for the players in terms of the player welfare bit. If you do pick up an injury, you could miss a whole league, and that's it just seems a little bit harsh. Whereas if it's a little bit spaced out, and I think we're going to maybe at some point maybe mention the attendance and stuff like that in the finals. It felt a little bit like yesterday, nobody in Division 1 wanted to play that final, which it does seems wrong when for the most part of the year, the National League is actually a brilliant competition.
Yeah, agreed. Funny, Rory, isn't it? Dessie comes on the podcast day one and he gives you all the things that drive you mad. The calendar situation, the attendances. This is your dream
fixture
guest.
making, calendars, the whole lot. Yeah. Look, we're a broken record really when it comes to the calendar at this stage. And look, I think there is a recognition even at officialdom level that there's an issue, and there might be a couple of extra weeks breathing space next year. But it mightn't be necessarily an issue for Dessie, given Westmeath up to Croke Park is an hour. But I think for teams like travelling from places like Kerry and Mayo, given the distances they have to travel, I'd love to know the logistics involved in
with a week's notice. Well,
can they do they need a hotel room? If they're not getting a hotel, are they driving 30, 40, elite level athletes on a bus up and down that type of journey on the one day? That's not a very healthy situation. So then you're looking at a situation whereby can I actually get a hotel in Dublin? You throw in the Dublin Half Marathon, which was ongoing yesterday, all around the streets of the north side, and it obviously affected the attendances then in a huge way. Look, I don't know. I think the issue around league finals, I would be a big believer in them. I think they're good things to have. And I know players will often say, and Dessie might have an opinion on this, I'm sure, about the opportunity to play in Croke Park. I'm not entirely sure the value of that. I think if they were looking at ways and means to try and incentivise, particularly in Division 1, the latter ends of the league campaign, would it be the worst thing in the world that the team that finishes top is rewarded with home advantage? Kerry, Mayo and Killarney yesterday probably gets 20,000 on its own. And in the end, we had 20,000 split across 4 teams. Kildare playing Offaly and Newbridge, Wexford playing Limerick and Wexford Park, and Monaghan are playing Roscommon above and Clones. Absolutely, big events in local towns at a time of the year when they get a little bit of an injection. And given Croke Park seem to be more concerned with promoting concerts and Liam Gallagher and rugby these days, maybe it would be the worst thing.
I would safely say if Jack O'Connor wants to get a hotel in Dublin, Rory, or around it, he would organise it somehow. They kick some people out.
There's enough Kerrymen up here in charge.
I think he's ruthless enough that he'd throw people out of hotels. And in terms of just the preparation of the teams and the players and stuff like that, I do believe Kerry are heading for Portugal for a couple of days training camp.
Correct.
I suppose it's interesting that they have a 3-week break for the championship, and they were the team that looked a lot more energetic and wanted to win it yesterday more than Mayo, who, when the final whistle blew, it looked like, right, lads, let's get back into the dressing room and let's get organised for Sligo next week. It had a real feeling of the match was of no significance, which is really sad, because I do think there was a good energy after the Kildare-Offaly game. There was a really good energy around the place, and the occasion looked good. I know there was a small crowd, like 21,500 is a pathetic crowd. And I think that's when the GA will stand up and take notice. When you have such a poor attendance at a final like that, it should be way bigger. But certainly, like, the travel and the cost to get up to Dublin would be significant for supporters, and the travel time. And I'd say, with the small notice that was given, as in they only qualified last week and the finals on this week, and there's a possibility then Mayo are playing again next week. So they're let's just hold off for the Connacht Championship and we'll go support their team then again.
Can I ask you that question that Rory raises there about the Croke Park thing? Because I do think there is something. I mean, I understand the point that Rory's making about trying to drive local attendances, and there's definitely something there. But the first words out of David Clifford's mouth yesterday after the match were, we were just glad to get a game in Croke Park to see how it played. So it obviously, that was the first thing in his mind. It wasn't winning a league title. It was just let's get road tested in Croke Park. So it clearly means something to Kerry.
It means something to everybody. Like, I did that Railway Cup a couple of weeks ago, and just to walk around the place, you just get a sense of, like, occasion. It's just an amazing place to be around. And Rory, like, as a child, where do you want to knock the ball around? Like, and the reality is, now this is the reality, like, Offaly starting the year, ending up in a league final in Croke Park is a massive thing for Offaly. It's a massive thing for Wexford, even though they didn't win, but they had a great season winning all their games. You go to Limerick again, the opportunity to play in Croke Park for certainly Division 2, 3 and 4, but even, it's interesting, the whole dynamic of Croke Park for the better teams. Like, Division 1 teams are going to probably win the All-Ireland, looks like it this year, and Monaghan and Roscommon are going up, but you would say, like, let's say yesterday, there wasn't many 2-pointers from the Kerry or Mayo. There wasn't too many 2-pointer shots. So then it's just to get to know us, the pitch and the dynamics and what's achievable in terms of the arc and the dimensions of the pitch with the new game. So certainly, I do think both of them teams will take a little bit out of that game in terms of how they'll prepare tactically for the championship and how they got on in Croke Park. They'll see that as probably a good idea.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, well, let's pick through the bones of it then. A 6-point win for Kerry, 118 to 112. And I don't know, Rory, if your sense is with Kerry that from very early on, Jack O'Connor said, look, we want to win this. You know, we're in the final now. We're going to try to go for it. But it did seem from early on, once they sniffed an opportunity, they were like, right, we're here. Let's just go for this full throttle. Whereas, I don't know, Mayo, there was just something not 100% right yesterday by the looks of it from the naked eye.
Yeah, and you never really got a sense that Mayo were going to win the game. I know it flickered into life very, very briefly around midway through the second half. After the O'Mclaughlin goal, and then Ryan O'Donoghue kicked a 2-pointer, which was a free awarded for. I couldn't really understand what the decision was for. I'm sure it was for something perfectly legitimate, but again, this probably comes back to a communication issue. David Koldrick is one of the best referees going. So if
he looked like he was communicating really well with the players, but I'd love to hear it.
Was it the fact that players weren't outside the arc for that particular kick out? I wasn't entirely sure. But look, Ryan O'Donoghue kicked it and it brought it back to 3 points. But it was a bit false. I felt that Kerry really kind of kept them at arm's length the whole way through. And I think they'll be very encouraged with a lot of aspects of their play. Jack O'Connor mentioned afterwards he'd describe it as a sort of a 6 out of 10 performance. I thought it was a little bit better than that. You'd probably go maybe 6.5 to 7. There's more in them. We know that. And I think, look, the big thing for me, we mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, the reward, I think, now for utilising the new rules and playing the front foot football, an attacking brand of football, moving the ball quickly from back to front, using the kick pass. Those types of qualities, which we know Kerry have in abundance, were rewarded big time. And I'm hoping that when we get into championship, that remains to be the case. Now, having said that, the game itself, you were looking at it and you were saying, has much changed? Despite all the new rules, has much changed in how the games are being played. It did have a feel at times that it was very similar to the way football was last year. There was a lot of slow lateral play. and there was a lot of defensive, shields set up, difficult to break through, difficult to break down. But I do believe overall, those types of passages of play aren't as frequent and don't go on for as long as they used to. That is definitely a positive. And you would hope, as I think Paul Flynn mentioned it last night, and I think he's right, and I definitely echo it, that the team that plays with adventure and the team that plays with that, that sort of swashbuckling, open, adventurous attitude and style, you would hope that they will be rewarded at the end of the year. And I think Kerry gave a very good indication from their point of view that they are definitely primed to take big advantage of these rules, given the quality of personnel they have, and led chiefly by the two Cliffords.
Yeah. Paddy. I mean, I know David gets such
Paddy
right
is so
praise,
important.
but like Paddy yesterday, Dessie, like he creates the goal, he creates everything. Like I think he's a joy to watch. I really do.
He is. He's like a player that has an extra 2 or 3 seconds when in reality it doesn't feel like that. But his mind is allowing him the time to make good decisions all the time. And then his close control when like there's a couple of times it was the 1-on-1 where he picked up a kick out or something like that, and there was a Mayo player close by. But like the Mayo player is like just afraid to go nibble at him, because if you nibble at him, he's gone past you, and then he's creating and he's such a great link man. But like he does the donkey work as well. He was getting back and he was getting forward, which is incredible. But the great thing with the Kerry team is their ability to kick that ball. And I don't know what to do as kids. Like, does this under-8 coach set up a cone and then he puts another cone 40 yards and he says, until you can kick the ball to the other cone, I'm not going to train you. Like, because it just seems as if they have an innate ability to kick the ball much better than everyone else. And I actually wonder how or why. I trained my under 12 team, and I don't know, like it just seems to be a fundamental thing in their game that they're more skillful, which is a great help in the modern game, because David Clifford was getting a lot of ball in there 1-on-1, which is an amazing thing for a corner forward. And I know Kevin mentioned about the freeze. There possibly was a couple of soft ones, but it was a great duel he was having with Donegal McHugh. But certainly their ability to kick the ball is being rewarded in the modern game. Equally, I was disappointed with the modern game. Mayo finished with 112 in terms of offensively. They did look like they were struggling a bit. Now, that's with Aidan O'Shea playing well up front, but that was with 1-2-pointer as well. So in the modern game, a scoring rate like that would be a worry for Kevin McStay, because it was down what you'd expect. And before the game, Kevin said, we need to bring enthusiasm and energy. And you just didn't see enough of that for them to win that game yesterday.
Are they short, Dessie, still? Like I think like maybe with somebody like a Killian not being there or whatever, just the star power and that quality up front, but they still look like maybe they're lacking something slightly in that dimension.
Yeah, well, like you would say, Ryan O'Donoghue is kind of a top level forward, but in the first half yesterday, he barely touched the ball. He actually decided to pull a ball out from inside the arc to outside just before half time. And it was a really, he missed it then, the shot, like, and he hadn't scored from playing that. So it was a full half without him effectively influencing the game. So would you say, yeah, I really do believe it's been the offensive thing, but it's been the offensive thing with Mayo for a long time. Certainly they can go toe-to-toe, they can go man-to-man. Tactically, they're very aware of what they're doing. But in terms of the quality, the X factor, if you look at most teams that win Sam Maguire, they don't have 1 star, they have 2 or 3 stars up front, because you do need to have that sort of firepower up there.
What about Kerry then, Rory? Because we know with Jack O'Connor, when they win the league, they win the championship. That's what happens. So ominous now that people are suddenly feeling, oh, okay, Kerry are here.
Well, it's going to be difficult to get a read on them, because what will largely happen is they'll disappear now for a couple of months, really, before you see them in a real championship match of any note or any quality once again. They'll have a Munster campaign, which you would imagine they'll coast through. The teams in Munster just simply aren't at their level. But I'd say he'd be happy enough. I mean, it's some record of 04, 06, 09, and the most recent one, which was 22. So he's going for 5 doubles, league and championship, and to win 5 All-Irelands across that time period. He's an incredible manager, by the way. It's absolutely extraordinary what he has achieved in his football career in 3 different iterations with 3 effectively new teams. I mean, if you think like he began his managerial career with the likes of the O'Sheas and Seamus Moynahans and all of those brilliant Kerry players, and here he is like over 20 years later and still putting, Kerry teams on the field, playing now in a way that I think will suit them. I think he'll be happy enough by and large with the performances right throughout the team. I think Joe O'Connor was outstanding yesterday.
Excellent.
One of the things we thought maybe going into the game over the weekend that Mayo might have had a little bit of an advantage at midfield in the absence of Diarmuid O'Connor. Joe O'Connor is probably showing now that he's well able to mix it in there too. They were hungry for breaking ball, which I think is going to become a key facet as the championship evolves. Like the goal they scored, I think was a baffling goal for Mayo to concede in many ways. I do not understand. I understand why teams and goalkeepers will still try and take a chance on a short one, but it's so risky now. It is so risky. And if you have Matthew Ruan and Jordan Flynn and Jack Carney and all these guys out around the middle of the field, why would you bother? It was an unusual decision, and it sort of set Kerry on their way. It settled them down, and they didn't really look back. I think it's a nice sentimental thing that they're the first team to win that new cup named after Micheál Hurtig. I think, as Dessie said, they're off to Portugal. They'll obviously sit back. They'll play the winners of Cork Limerick next, and I don't think they'll be overly concerned on that front. And then we'll see. Well, hopefully once we get to the round robin stages of the All-Ireland series, that the draw is a little bit more taxing on them than it was this time last year. No disrespect to Louth, Monaghan and Meath, but they wouldn't be of a quality that what was ever going to test them. But I'd say they're reasonably happy. They know the real football will probably start late June, and I think that's what they're planning for.
Okay, last word on Kerry to you then, Dessie. All-Ireland favourites or not?
I suppose, I don't know what I've put them favourites. Equally, I would have to say that I think it's probably the most open championship we've had in a long time.
Yeah.
If you're looking, that's it. And I do think Armagh, Kerry McGean texted me around the time I was finishing up, but I said, fair play, Kieran, you gave everyone a lift around the country, because I think it was 9 years in a row he didn't win an Ulster Championship match, and then he won Sam Maguire. So I was saying it gives every manager a bit of breathing space. Stick with your manager, he'll come good eventually. But I do think, looking at Armagh last year, everybody was looking at them going, Jesus, they were a great team and a great team to win it, and they deservingly won it. But certainly a lot of teams would go, on our day, I think we can beat Armagh. So in that Division 1, I'd say everybody's gunning for it. Yeah, look at with Jack O'Connor with winning the league. There's ominous signs there. There's a couple of players come back in around the middle, and I do think, Rory, that middle section is really important for them. But yesterday they did fairly well in that department, and I do think
they did.
The point you make, you do want to win primary possession if you can, because the place you're most vulnerable in the modern game is that overload where everyone's going to one side of the pitch. So if everyone's going to one side of the pitch, there's space all over the place, the other side of the pitch. So if you lose that kick out, the opportunities are on if you go for the tap and go and move it really fast. So even I would say, like looking at Kildare yesterday, they didn't press up on any kickouts, which is a major problem for them. So I do feel that battleground around the middle is something that teams will be zoning in on. And certainly yesterday, Kerry showed that the importance of winning the dirty ball on the ground, them ground battles, because that ultimately got them good primary possession, and they went on and to dominate in that section.
Yeah, they've definitely found something, that's for sure. What about Division 2 then? Because I think both of you have said that maybe we won't have an All-Ireland winner from this division. But I think when you look at Monaghan, like you talk about the scoring, Dessie, 126 again on Saturday to Roscommon's 19 points, which looks and feels like a battering that maybe we weren't expecting. But like you look at that scoreline, and it's not the first time Monaghan have racked this up. We talked about this on the podcast last week. And if they continue to score at this level, then you feel like maybe they will be in that shake-up.
Nobody will want to play Mayo or Monaghan. Sorry, nobody will want to play them. They are very effective. I watched them against Meath, the blitz Meath on the pitch, and the ability for Rory Beggan just to stroke over the 2-pointers is like, he got 7 points. I think he's Monaghan's top scorer in the league.
Yeah,
but like
he was their top scorer on Saturday night.
Yeah, well, I think he 28 points before the last round in the league scored. But like, Rory, it does seem a little bit unfair insofar as like outside the arc for him,
Yeah.
it's like kicking a 14-yard
I'd say
free.
you could do it blindfolded.
Yeah, like I've been at games, we played them in a challenge game, and like like you know the way you ever play golf with some lad that can hit the ball straight, it's very frustrating. He's literally every time he hits the ball like perfectly, and it's like an arrow. And I actually was thinking, I watched a documentary of American football, and I was like, it's great that we have him. I don't know how he didn't make it in America in terms of the NFL, because he is really that good. His striking of the ball is phenomenal, and certainly for Monaghan, it gives them a great advantage in an awful lot of games. And as well as that, his awareness. I thought, and I was talking to people, that when at round 5 of the league, where said the goalie's role now is not going to be influential in the game. And I talked to 2 guys involved with 2 counties and said, that's the goalie done. And then I went up and watched Monaghan and Meath, and Rory Beggan ran the show as a player in the opposition attacking half of the pitch, just like a sliding doors things with some of the cornerbacks. He was getting on the ball around the 45 top of the arc, and he was so clever in his movement. He was sending a lad back, he was sliding forward, and he was linking a lot of the play, and he is so dangerous and so effective.
Yeah,
I think
it's,
the jury,
it's class.
but I think the jury could still be out on that particular ruling, and not to take away another strength and another string from the Rory Beggan bow now, but the 2-point free.
Yeah, I agree. I was just going to say
I'm
this,
just
Rory.
not sure about it, Jacqui, Dessie. I'm just not sure about the 2-point free.
Can I
Go,
say
Des.
something? Jack Bryant got an outrageous goal yesterday. Like, he got the ball, and there was clads closing in him 20 yards out, top corner of the net.
Goal of the weekend.
Phenomenal. And then the Kildare goalie comes down and kicks a 45 about a minute later for 2 points.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? Like, how can that goal, like, it nearly deserves 6 points.
Get 66% cancelled out by,
Yes,
by a dead ball shot.
But especially something that people practice with, in their backyards, in their local GA pitches every single day with nobody on you. It's called a free for a reason, because it's a gimme, sorry, not a gimme in terms of it being over.
Well, it is for Rory Beggan.
And that's what I mean, Rory. Like, for people like that who are that good, I'm not sure about it. I
like the 2-point. Yeah, and I do like the 2-point arc. I think the 2-point arc is a good thing, because it gives teams another way to play, another opportunity. If you're if you're a more mobile team, if you're not as big or physically imposing, if you're going to find it difficult to break through, big blanket defenses that'll set up in front of that arc. I like the 2-point arc, because I think that 2-point shot is good to give teams, again, a different way of winning a game of football. But it should be from play only.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, no, it just looks as if it's too generous an amount for a free, that lads I suppose, to be fair, it's inter-county level, like you would expect it. Like,
and he has a gorgeous style. I mean, I was watching. I mean, the game Monaghan Roscommon, the game was pretty much decided in a 4-minute period. It was kind of the 39th to the 43rd minute. It was 13-12 Roscommon, and Beggan kicks 2 2-pointers, and then I think Bannigan kicked a beauty from play. But like, his style is so languid, it is so laid back. He puts this lovely backspin on the ball that it starts to slow down as it's drifting over the bar, like, and it's just a gorgeous thing to watch, and it's some weapon for them. I'm sure they won't want it cancelled for this year, and look, if it remains this year, that's okay. I think could add a major bit of drama at the end of some game where somebody has to step up and kick one over from distance, and look, we'll see then. Maybe the cribbing will start.
But you'd have to say, like, I think Monaghan, to be fair, are a bit of a surprise package. Like, losing Conor McManus, losing Conor McManus, there's definitely a feeling that now Monaghan will find a real place. Like, they've overachieved for years, and they're just, but like, I've watched them, and the quality that they have with the band, like, even Gabriel Bannigan is a quiet guy. Like, he's not mixing too much, he's not in the media too much, he's not saying anything really. He's hard to kind of get a sense of what's going on with Monaghan. But like, the balance in the team, I think the move from Conor McCarthy back to wing back has been exceptional. He is so good in that position, and he was always kind of he was up front, half forward, working hard, and then he was kind of an impact sub for a while. But the move back to number 7 has been incredible for his game. He's picked up an all-star, and he's one of the top scorers for Monaghan. coming late and coming deep and using his knowledge and experience. The use of Jack McCarron, always felt like starting the game, he was a little bit slow to kind of get into it and get on it. And in a couple of games now I've watched, he's coming on and he's just like outside of the boot, 40 yards, 2-pointers. He's very effective, the half yard of space. He's getting a lot of scores when he's coming on deep, but they have a lot of strength and depth in their team and a lot of hard workers. And for a team that you would have expected to drop a little bit, I think they're doing exceptionally well and they're very well drilled. And there's a lot of confidence in that team now.
What do you think for Roscommon then? Because look, we all know from Davy Burke, he was saying we weren't expecting to be there in the first place, but to get there and then to sort of be in it and then blown away in that period, as Rory said, and suddenly not in it. Is it a setback for them? And how much do you expect that he sort of puts weight on it and kind of attaches himself to saying, okay, look, we can be better than this?
Well, I mentioned Gabriel Bannigan in terms of not saying much. I think Davy says an awful lot. And I think I don't know, is it helping the team at the minute in terms of like, we shouldn't be there. We're not, we don't deserve this. They're like Roscommon are our neighbours, but certainly it's funny where they're at the minute. They've got promoted, so they're in Division 1 next year. But there's a bit of a lull around the place in terms of where they're at, because I think there was a feeling that Roscommon should be pushing on and kicking on a little bit more, getting to Division 1 and competing and staying there for a prolonged period of time. But just at the minute, the feeling around the county, the energy and the vibes that's coming out of it, it's not unbelievably positive for a team that's after getting promoted. And I do think their style of play, they're not just getting the best out of the players at the minute. And then obviously defensively, they do struggle to hold teams when it's man-to-man and pretty much man-to-man at the minute. So it's a funny place Roscommon are in, because certainly Roscommon would have looked at Armagh and would have competed with Armagh in years gone by, would have bet Armagh in years gone by. And then you look at where they've gone to and where Roscommon are, they're a bit stagnant, and it's a worry for Davy Burke. And can he reinvigorate them? I know he's a great energy and I know he knows a lot about the game, but it's a difficult job to reinvigorate lads halfway through a season.
Yeah, I agree, Rory. I think that's the biggest difficulty that he has now, because he's been so open about their struggles, about how he manages to get them back on the horse.
But I still think they have a huge amount of quality, particularly in the forward ranks. They have, the two Murtas, obviously. Ben O'Carroll, I know, has probably had a stop-start spring, not really as good as we've seen from him in the past. Cian McKeown and Enda Smith, like they generally speaking are usually pretty strong around the middle of the field. Like there's a lot of good component parts, but I do agree with Dessie. I think Dessie's right. Like there just seems to be they've kind of driven down a little bit of a cul-de-sac at the minute, and they're just trying to find a little way back out again. I think the Connacht Championship is a good opportunity for them to do that. But look, they're a Sam Maguire team. They're back in Division 1. I think when you get into the round robin in the Sam Maguire, they will cause teams huge problems. I think they have too much quality not to do that. But and they'll have an opportunity, as I said, when they get into Connacht, to look, if they go and try and win a Connacht title, I'm sure that's well within their remit. And if they were, that would obviously give them a massive boost going into the round robin. Like Roscommon will, I'd hazard a guess that they will still make last 8. I suppose where people have been disappointed with them in the past is maybe there was a sense that they should be a team with the quality that they have, that making a semi-final, winning a big game in Croke Park.
I think they have a golden generation. Like you have the Merton, the Smiths, you have Donny Smith, you have players. They're all of the age just going past that 30 mark. And I suppose the question is, have they got the best out of themselves in terms of the ability that they have? And
can I ask Dessie? We haven't seen Brian Stack.
Brian Stack is injured. He's injured at the minute. Yeah. And to be fair, I do think
he's
that's
huge for them now.
Because really, like we say, like your house is built on a solid foundation, Rory, no matter what you're scoring.
And he's rock solid.
Yeah, he's a player that goes toe to toe with the best and generally holds his own. But he's a massive loss, and that's where I suppose the question mark for Davy is like, have they? Everybody is aware of their forwards and offensively their abilities. They can score plenty. There's no issue there. But have have to fix that defensive problem, because really the defensive problem was there 3 or 4 years ago. Everybody knew the Roscommon had the forwards, but can they manage in Division 1 maybe blocking out teams and not conceding enough? And I just don't think they've found a solution for that yet.
Yeah. A lot of questions, isn't it? When you're getting in straight into championship again next week, you're like, I'd like these answers now, please. That'd be great. Let's move on to Division 3 then, because I do think the Leinster Championship is suddenly actually quite interesting given what's happening with Offaly in particular, I think, Dessie. And we talked about them on the podcast previously in the last few weeks of maybe being the sort of surprise package in this division and just what they've managed to do. But I think with Mickey Hart, nobody's ever really surprised about maybe getting a bounce out of him. But I do think having silverware and going into a Leinster Championship and feeling now that maybe there is a possibility of going far and actually having a run at this and making a development within the county is actually now a real possibility.
It's unbelievable. I have to say, I knew Mickey Hart was appointed and I said, "Jeez, what's Mickey Hart doing? That is a tough gig," like, because Offaly were just in a spot where they were just hovering in Division 3, just kind of managing, like, just above relegation. But the energy that he's brought, like, they're my neighbours on the other side, but like, it's incredible what he's done. Like, Declan Kelly was there and it was this bit of a struggle. They offloaded a couple of players in the winter. Some of the more seasoned players, Peter Cunningham, Anton Sullivan, were players, like, to be fairly well-known players. So that was a brave thing to do as well. But they've gone with the younger lads, they've gone with energy, they've gone with appetite. And it's in abundance. Like, when they played yesterday, every time they got the ball, they were running hard at the goals. They were creating opportunities. They were unselfish in their play. And everything that they were doing looked really good. There was a great collective effort by the team. Like, while individually they were working hard to create the opportunities, collectively everybody was on the same page. And it was just a really impressive performance. And I think that, like, they've I don't say they've overachieved, but certainly going into that game yesterday, Jacqui, I probably felt Kildare were going to win that by 7 or 8 points, pulling up, like. And really and truly, it was Offaly that was the team that was driving it on. And I'd say Kildare are scratching their head this morning. Like, Brian Flanagan's a really good fella. It's a tough job that he has to correct that. And they're playing Westmeath in a few weeks now. Westmeath haven't won any game, but certainly
played well in the league, though.
Yeah, they're playing well. So that's a worry for Brian Flanagan. That's going to be a massive match in Newbridge for him as a young manager trying to cut his teeth with a Kildare team that are so unpredictable.
It's phenomenal, Rory, isn't it? The two sides of the coin, because suddenly you've got Offaly and going, yeah, you know, they could have a good go in Leinster, but also a Tailteann Cup where they're potentially now seen as a real team. And then Kildare on the flip side of it, where you're wondering, we thought it was an automatic promotion right back up. They'd get back on the horse, they'd be back in Leinster. And now suddenly you're wondering what is going on.
I think it's a pity, actually, that Offaly, a team like Offaly are being precluded from Sam Maguire Cup football. I think they would have brought a lot to the table. There's so much to like about them. There's great personality there. They're out there, they're playing. When they're shooting, they get their scores, they're smiling. A Gaelic footballer. Hard to listen to, Rory. They're hard to listen. But think about this, a Gaelic footballer that smiles, Dessie. I mean, that's such rare.
I'm going to get it in the nose this morning when I go into school from the Offaly crowd.
You know, there's like, just...
You know what it is? It's like when they're in Croke Park, they belong in Croke Park. It's amazing.
Yeah, like, there's just
I'm back and I'm here to win.
And they're so young, so like, that's the thing about them. You're kind of saying, like, how have they this kind of confidence, this air? It's just something to really admire. And they play like they're not a big team. They are, like, if you were kind of comparing if you were putting a boxing analogy on this, you'd say these two teams possibly will be in different weight divisions, and it's not safe for one to play the other. But that they don't let that affect them. Because they have this maverick type of streak in them when it comes to the way they actually play football. It's a bizarre thing. I don't know whether it goes back to the days of the Matt O'Connors and all the Lowrys, and it was just they just do things differently. They're very hard to put a finger on. I think their presence in the Sam Maguire would be enriching for the competition, but you would have to say that they could absolutely target Tailteann Cup and absolutely go and try and win that.
What about Division 2 next year? Derry, Tyrone,
Louth,
Offaly and Louth, all teams managed by Mickey Hart.
Yeah.
He owns the division.
He owns the division. Come here, what do you think about them for the Tailteann Cup, Dessie? Because obviously, look, having been in Westmeath, you know the feelings around it where maybe you feel you want to be in the top tier, you want to be playing in Sam Maguire versus having a run in a Tailteann Cup and winning a Tailteann Cup and what it means to the county. Give me a sense of where your head's at.
Yeah, no, to be honest, like when you're like the opportunity is you're guaranteed your group games, so you're guaranteed matches. So like that, it's not a case of, oh, you lose the championship, you're out, good luck, backdoor stuff. You're guaranteed the matches. So you're playing up to a certain time frame, but equally they will target that as the semi-final live on TV, Croke Park, and the final live on TV, Croke Park. So it's showcasing, and there, like as a player, there's an all-star for a Tailteann Cup. There's a holiday fund. We ended up in Mexico. That's all I know. So, like, if you're a player looking at that and you're an Offaly player after winning Division 3, and then the rubber stamp of you get All-Ireland Series next year guaranteed, it's an incredible incentive. And that's what we spoke about initially when we lost our championship match. We seen the opportunity that was ahead of us in terms of holiday, in terms of, possible All-Star for some of the players, in terms of All-Ireland Series. There's a lot of carrots for teams in Division 3 and 4. You have to take it seriously and you have to see it as a great opportunity to showcase. Like, I'd love to see Offaly on TV again, or, like watch them live in Croke Park, because it seems to suit their style of play. And certainly, if you're in an All-Ireland final, a Tailteann Cup All-Ireland final, certainly you're going to give it everything. And any team in Division 3 and 4 should be eyeing that up as a massive opportunity. It is now a great competition. And I just hope it maintains a status in the calendar, because it is really important to give these teams a lifeline in terms of success.
Yeah, I agree, Rory, because I think even for, let's say, Limerick winning the Division 4 title at the weekend, same goes for them. It's a big national title. It's a monumental step forward for them and what they're doing. But they'll go into that Tailteann Cup feeling the same way, wanting to feel like, yep, we've made progress. We can go into this competition and target something like that as well, for all the reasons that Dessie rightly outlines that maybe we probably don't think about on a daily basis, about those all-stars, the team holidays, the guarantee of what's coming down the line, because it's a secondary competition. But Dessie's absolutely right. There's a massive prize there.
Yeah, and it's been a very good concept from the GAA's point of view, because it keeps teams playing, it keeps teams together far longer. It allows particularly a team like Offaly under the old system, where you've got so many young players coming through, the fact that you're able to keep them together playing into competitive football right up to the end of the inter-county season, which finishes very quickly, as we know. But I think that's a huge positive, and it's absolutely something to go after. And similarly for Limerick, I think Limerick will feel they'll give Cork plenty of it next weekend, and they have absolutely nothing to fear. It was nearly my favourite game of the four of them over the weekend. I mean, Kildare Offaly obviously had some incredible moments in it, but I would have a huge soft spot for counties that have proper dual counties, which is what Wexford and Limerick are. They are a proper dual county club and at county level. And when you have a sort of a more famous and more prominent sibling, it can be very difficult. It can be a very lonely journey at times, and it can be a very unappreciated one. And I think lads that soldier at the coalface there, I think, are doing it really for themselves. They're not getting any rewards. They're certainly not getting to play in front of big crowds. And the same goes for both teams. And I thought Limerick played with a really good sense of identity. I think you could really see exactly what they were at. Their conditioning looks good. Some basic handling errors, but look, we saw that right across the weekend. It wasn't just exclusive to Division 4, and maybe their quality is just at a lower level. But it was possibly, as I said, my favourite game over the course of the weekend. And I was delighted for them, because I think it was a shot in the arm for Limerick football, a shot in the arm for Munster football. And I do believe they will give Cork loads.
Yeah, I agree. And I do think, Dessie, Rory's right. Sometimes because the hurlers get so much attention in Limerick, you'd nearly forget they have a football team. But for them to, brought people to Croke Park and brought them on a journey and brought national silverware, I know people involved down there, and it means an awful lot to them, and they probably don't get much kudos for it,
Absolutely. Now, Limerick were in Division 2 a few years ago. And then last year they had a bad year in Division 3 and got relegated. So like Limerick have quality players. Like, don't forget that. Like, you have James Naughton who got 411 in the
Or
last round of the
412, yeah.
National League. Yeah, 412, is it?
Yeah, 412, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, we won't
Wasn't
argue the
relevant.
toss on it. Like.
Yeah, like you have, I seen Peter Nash. I remember we were trying to stop him. Like he came off the bench. Like they brought on Danny Neville, who played for Munster in the Railway Cup before. So they have a squad of players that understand. They're strong physically. I thought they looked a little bit ahead of Wexford in terms of the the condition and the strength. I felt a little bit sorry for Wexford. They won every game in the group. And in fairness to John Hegarty, if you look at where they've come from, I think it's very, very steady progress and a lot of good work there going on by John Hegarty because they're improving all the time. They're a possession-based team. They don't like to give them the ball away. But certainly, I do think they're trending really well and getting better, which is important for Wexford football. But I do think Limerick are a team that will cause Cork trouble because, as we know, Rory, Cork are Cork.
Yep.
Like, and then the other side of it is there's a little bit of confidence. Like if you're winning a national title in Croke Park, then boys will be buzzing, bouncing into training and looking at the Cork game as a real opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. We'll come back to that. We are looking at that one later in the week because we're going to have to finish up. But come here. One last story, Rory, that I know you wanted to touch on. We've seen in Meath over the course of the weekend, a couple of players leaving. There's obviously been difficulties in Carlow over the last number of weeks. They play next weekend and feels like the battle royale now, doesn't it? With a bit of revolution maybe in both camps.
Well, Jacqui, what we want to know is how hot has Dessie Dolan's phone been over the last 24 to 48 hours?
I was just laughing because I think Shane said some of the players didn't come back from London. Westmeath played about 25 years ago and never got on the flight, the whole team. We ended up on Joe Duffy on Liveline. There was war going on. The lads just had too many drinks after the game. The game generally in London finishes a little bit early, and then it's an evening flight home. So between the match finishing and the evening flight, things went a little bit array. So it was a different time, but yeah,
it clearly wasn't a different time because it's still going on now.
But yeah, it's look at the management thing is really interesting in terms of like that's tough. Like Shane Curran leaving, and then Robbie Brennan's after having a massive loss. Like Joe McMahon and Martin Corey, two very solid guys after leaving the management team a week out from championship. Like that had to be like a serious clash going on there for two lads to walk out and leave. Like ultimately you're leaving the players as well as the county, like, and you get drawn to lads as well. And I suppose when you look at Kieran McGeeney, he's set the template where you need a really strong management team and players look at that. Like he's Kieran Donaghy, Kieran McKeever, Conor Gilligan along with himself. And I suppose everyone looks at the standard in other counties. And when you see that's kind of like the gold standard of a management team, and that's what players would expect around the place, that if I'm giving up all of this time and I'm training like and sacrificing all parts of my life, you need to make sure that the county board are looking after and getting a really strong management team in place. And there's a clash there, trying to keep modern players happy, maybe not winning matches, maybe, like everyone's expecting instant success. It's not easy. And with the time and the demands that's expected from intercounty players, if they're not happy, they'll let you know.
Yeah, it's also not easy, Rory, to find somebody in the middle of the championship. If you're the county board and you're going out looking for, be they selectors, S&C coaches, or a manager, whatever it is, it's not easy with a week to go.
No, it's a mess really for both counties. But the only caveat is, I suppose, it nearly cancels each other out as they're playing each other next weekend, and it probably makes it the most interesting championship fixture in many ways now. Irrespective of
the soccer, it's getting like the soccer. You have interim managers in Gaelic.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know what Carlow have done. I assume maybe did the bat signal go up for Turlock maybe to come back. I think if they were beaten next Sunday, they might have a month before they play again. So it might be the case that they just internally manage the situation for the championship this weekend. But it doesn't look the rosiest of pictures in Meath either, and it's a difficult thing nowadays. Dessie mentioned the level of commitment involved, the amount that players are putting in, the pressure that's on county boards then to deliver that type of management teams that the players feel is justifying all that effort and all that commitment that they are prepared to put in. It's a really, really tough one. We don't know why the two lads left the Meath situation, but I think if there was cameras on the sideline next weekend, that would definitely be the place to keep the closest eye on who emerges out of the dressing room, because it could be anyone.
Dessie, is it going to be you?
It could be Dessie. Yeah.
I'm podcasting now, lads. I'm podcasting. I landed the dream job here, so I have.
That's it.
Yeah.
Right. Go on. Listen, we'll leave it there. Dessie, thanks a million for being with us.
No
Look forward to
problem. Nice
chatting
speaking
you
again.
over the
Well
next couple of months. And to everybody else, we'll be back later in the week to look ahead to the first round of the championship, which gets underway next weekend. We will talk to you on Thursday.
Lead by a point.